Hey guys, welcome to the video where today I'm going to go over some statistics that I spent a little bit of time of reading based off of charts, surveys, etc. of what you and me and all of crypto believes is going to happen in 2026 to get an idea of really just the expectations of the general market, right? Because if you didn't see it this way before, crypto is a popularity contest. In general, what the most people think is going to happen that they have control over will happen. And then also the inverse of things we can't control over, things like industrial market makers, manipulation. It will usually ends up being the opposite of what we're expecting. So what I did is I compiled a lot of data together and put together some of the larger questions that I was curious about, that I think some of you guys are going to be curious about, and give the input of what retail believes is going to happen, industrial is going to happen, and different crypto companies in general believe as well. This is part two. So I've done one video on this before of a few questions. I will have a part three involved, but I just wanted a couple ones today. And some of these questions are things about like, okay, are we going to have an alt season? What's actually going involved with our altcoins right now? Or what about future altcoin seasons? Do we expect that there's going to be one? Will the altcoins that we have right now, are they going to hit all-time highs? Or all of them, none of them, or some of them? Which narratives do we think are going to really boost up this year? Things like that nature. So if any of that has you curious of what the general population thinks, stay tuned for this video. We're going to jump right into that. But first, if you guys have been here before or you get anything useful or interesting from this video, please do press the like and subscribe buttons down below. It really does help a small channel like me out. But regardless, let's move forward and let's see what all of us kind of think is going to happen so we can use this own information to do your own research, invest at your own risk, and see what kind of profits we can make this year in 2026. So the first question, I hit this in the last video, but I feel like it is relative to everything else that I want to talk about today. So I'm going to rehash this one briefly. Is there going to be an alt season this year? So roughly 70 to 80% of both retail and institutional investors think there's going to be some form of an alt season this year. Most expect it to be a little bit more selective rather than broad and like every crypto boosts and flies to the moon. And the general feeling is that it's going to mostly favor like the high utility tokens, Ethereum, Solana, Sui. These are ones I've heard repeat several times as I was reading through this, over a lot more of the smaller, more speculative projects. So real briefly, my take on this, because I'll give you my take on all these questions, and please do put your thoughts, your take down below. I also think there's going to be some resemblance of an altcoin season. I think it's going to be about the top 1 to 300 coins, and that kind of falls in line with what most other people think of saying the high utility, because most of the high utility coins are in the top 300, right? Not saying most of the top 300 are high utility, not the same thing, but they're also the ones that are on like Coinbase and Binance, and the ones that are on, well, more and larger exchanges where you're going to have more of the newer retail or the normies come in and hop in. And when crypto's a popularity contest, yeah, the ones that are easier to get into, the ones that have more use cases, the ones that are talked about more, those are the ones that are going to go up. So I would say confidently that if there's an altcoin season, which I think is going to happen approximately now, we might be in the building of it, even though large caps have been going back up. I think it's going to be until like May or so. I think we're going to have a big blow off around March to April, but we'll end up saying that's my thoughts. I'm curious about yours down below. Now, future alt seasons. This one is more interesting to me. I don't know. Is there gonna be any alt seasons, or are we just in a Bitcoin market after this one or already? From the institutional lens, right? Institutions, they filter assets for adoption, liquidity, and infrastructure. Retail often just hopes for a broad pump, but historically, only 20, 30% of altcoins actually outperform Bitcoin in a cycle. Not saying that they don't do well to where it's worth you getting some money from it, but outperform Bitcoin isn't usually more than about a third. Right? Selectivity is likely due to regulatory clarity, market maturity, capital efficiency. So the general thought for institution is that there'll be an alt season in the future, but they're going to be the larger ones. and they're going to be kind of the ones that are already following with Bitcoin. So, as a general rule of thumb, if they're around the $1 billion market cap or more, they follow very closely with Bitcoin. And that appears to be what institutional lens really believes. With retail, it's kind of split pretty closely around that 40 to 60% of we'll never have an alt season again. This is the last possible one, or last cycles was. Or nope, we're always going to have. I'm not convinced we're going to have future altcoin seasons, at least not in the realm that we're used to it, where it's a large percentage of altcoins. I think that Bitcoin and we'll call it the top five or so, Ethereum and Solana, a few others, depending on where things go as regularity and clarity starts coming in, I think they're going to start following stocks. I think they're going to hop in, they're going to follow the stock cycle. And I think we're going to have not really alt seasons, but I think we're going to have narrative pumps. That I expect, to where maybe any of the crypto in the top 5 or 600 that is RWA based, they're going to have a month or so where they run wild. Then maybe we're going to have an AI boom where for a couple of weeks they just pump and go wild. But I don't think it's going to be everything collectively for future alt seasons. I think memes are probably the ones that are going to be around for the biggest or most consistent altcoin season. Because let's be honest, people love to gamble. We love the idea of a small amount of money to a big reward. And a lot of people will fail dozens of times until they get the one big one. So I think memes is always going to be a thing. But for alt seasons, starting with this one, I don't think it's going to be what it has been in the past. I think it's going to be more of just the larger coins, the more popular ones with high utility, and then narrative pumps. And that's where we're going to get some of the smaller coins to really hop in. And companies will, because they've done this before, time good news for when a good narrative is open. And I think when they strategize it that way, it's going to work very well. Now, will altcoins get all-time highs in 2026, presuming that there's an altcoin season? So if you don't think there's an altcoin season, I think it's safe to assume you don't think there's going to be all-time highs of many altcoins. I am curious, though, what do you think the all-time high of Bitcoin and Ethereum is going to be? So if you guys have any strong opinions, put that down below. In general, statistically, all-time highs for altcoins don't always happen during alt season. They'll happen during random little pumps, and a lot of it depends on why do they get to the all-time high in the first place. Was it from a real utility drive? Like when XRP came out recently and they had their all-time high. Same thing when HBAR hit their local high. It was from news that drove it forward. If the project actually gets a large benefit and improves, more likely get an all-time high. I don't think most are going to, personally. Now, that doesn't mean that most crypto or many of the altcoins can still 5, 10, or 20x, because a lot of them are far below their all-time high than that, right? So I do think there's a lot of potential for growth of these altcoins, but I don't expect most to hit all-time highs this year. And I think it's going to be the top 100 or so, or some of the smaller ones in the top 3 to 500, or some of the smaller ones in the top 2 to 500 that are starting to really break away with real momentum and real utility. I think they're going to hit all-time highs. But no, I personally don't think that most crypto is going to hit all-time highs this year, even with an alt season. What are your thoughts? All right. This next one I really didn't think was much of an argument. Maybe that just says how strong my opinion is on this one. But are altcoins investable assets or speculative experiments? And institutions clearly view most altcoins as experiments, with very few clear exceptions. Right? I mean, like BlackRock spends their time talking about what, 3 crypto? I mean, they've mentioned Ondo, they've mentioned XRP, they've mentioned HBAR. There might have been another 1 or 2 in there that I'm missing, but I think you get the point. Institutions are very picky and specific because they're higher risk, and institutions aren't going to put their millions and hundreds of millions of dollars into a risky asset that they're not confident is going to net them their money back. It's why they pick Bitcoin and Ethereum. Retail is going to keep altcoins as speculative, and here's where my opinion comes into play. Because of us, We like the idea of, can I turn $100 into $10,000? We're going to keep it as a speculative play, but we're going to all pretend and assume that the crypto that we speculate on is actually an investable asset. Meaning most of the crypto that any of us are very passionate on, a lot of them haven't actually done anything yet, right? They just have the promise or the ability and hope of doing a lot. Okay, so like I'm not gonna. This isn't teasing, but like Caspa hasn't really done much yet. Yes, they're building. I do get that, but their potential is a lot higher than what their actual utility is right now. XRP is actually the same way, right? And again, I think XRP is great, but there's so much more hype and expectation of it than actual utility right now. Same thing technically with quant, right? And I'm big into quant, highest conviction play, but it's all still speculative. They can come by and say, do you know what? All of Europe decided not to do CBDCs, and there goes a massive part of it. So altcoins, we all, I think, so I guess what my opinion is industry sees altcoins 100% as speculative, and the ones that they know are use cases, they don't talk about, they buy way too low, and then they'll talk about how it's a good use case. So that way retail comes in. Retail, we're using it fully as speculative experiments, but we are very emotional creatures, and we just, for the most part, assume most of our altcoins are going to be the gift of gold. We'll find out. I hope we all win. Won't work that way. Lastly, what's going to be the big narrative? Whether it's now for this year, 2026, and down the road. And the three big ones that everyone is really looking at is RWA, DePIN, and AI. And at least in terms of industry, corporation, they're all RWA. Not all, but they're much more in the RWA, the tokenization aspect of it. Right? I mean, RWAs provide predictable yield, their compliance, their institutional adoption, which really does make a difference on their opinion of it, right? They're prioritizing tokenization because that's where a lot of industry or a lot of companies that need billions of dollars in, that's where industry is going. So RWA appears it's got its niche. It is going to be moving forward in the cryptoverse no matter what. AI is definitely going to be there. We just don't know to what extent. And if we're talking about price action or the most popular and most use, AI is going to be big, just like DePIN. DePIN is right there. I think DePIN is going to be the winner for retail, where RWA is the winner for institution. Right? Again, institution is going to be tokenizing everything under the rising sun, make things a lot cheaper, payment processing, etc. Where DeFi and DePIN, that's where a lot of retail can go ahead and make a lot of money by investing in things like liquidity pools and jumping into DeFi and DePIN projects and staking to help grow the liquidity. So I guess my opinion is technically what's going to win is RWA, but I really like DePIN personally. So there you guys have it. Those are my thoughts on some of the big questions that you guys or the general cryptoverse has been putting their thoughts on. So what are your guys' thoughts today? Please put your thoughts and answers down below. I'm curious. I want to see what everyone else thinks because I can read surveys and charts and stuff all day long, but I'm curious about you guys to help interact with me. Let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys for a part 3 and a bunch of other random videos that I'll do. Thank you guys for being here. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.